In the tool room, we have hardware for the pneumatic tools. Down below the battery chargers, we have the narrow crown staples. And you can see these narrow crown staples, 18 gauge is the gauge of the wire, but they're 1/4 inch narrow crown staples. That means the crown across it is a 1/4 inch across. This is standard narrow crown staple size. And it says the 1/2 inch ones are used for flat facing for 1/8 inch Luan. Over here, the 5/8 ones are to use for flat facing for 1/4 inch Luan. You don't need to use anything bigger than that for the facing of a flat. We've got some 3/4 inch staples, some 1 inch staples, and then down below we have 1 1/4 inch staples, and then this one is the most important one, the 1 1/2 inch staples. They are what you use for nailing flat framing together when you're using 3/4 inch pine. You need to use that 1 1/2 inch staple. The same rule that applies to drywall screws applies to staples, in that the length of the staple needs to be twice as long as the material you're going through. You're going through 3/4 inch pine, so you want to use the 1 1/2 inch staple. We have some 1/2 inch corrugated nails. We don't use these so often. These used to be used more often in some standard soft flat construction. Still have them. I don't want to get rid of them. I still have the nailer. Almost never use it. Over to the left, about head height for most of you. These are the staples for the hand staplers and for the Fasco Pneumatic Staplers. All of our hand staplers are dual fast brand. They're a proprietary tool with a proprietary staple. You cannot buy the T50 Aero staples from Home Depot and use them in our hand staplers. They will not fit. In fact, I've gotten rid of all of the Aero staples. I used to have 2 sets of bins of staples, and I even had them labeled, but they still got all mixed up and confused, so it just is better to have one kind of staple. And the dual fast staplers are really nice and much more reliable and much more consistent. Just above that are our brad nails. Brad nails are for the brad nailer. They're various size, and again, if you are brad nailing into 3/4 inch pine, you need to use the 1 1/2 inch length brad nail. Above that, in a different color bin, are the finish nails. They're straight finish nails. They are very similar to the brad nails, except these are 16 gauge wire, and the brad nails are 18 gauge wire. So the wires are a little bit bigger. These will not fit in a brad nailer and will not work in a brad nailer. You need to not get these two mixed up. Down below and to the left, keeping everything kind of separate so it doesn't get mixed in so much, we have our medium crown staples. Our medium crown staples are 7/16 of an inch wide across on the crown, and we have a couple of medium crown staplers. There are 2 or 3 brands. We have a Dual Fast, we have a Makita, and I think we have a Porter cable as well. The problem is the Dual Fast, again, is a brand, and they like to use their proprietary staples. There's a slight shape difference in their staples in the head, so if you're using the Dual Fast, you can only use the one that says Dual Fast OK. And this one down below says Dual Fast OK. The other 2 bins say do not use in Dual Fast. Do not use in Dual Fast. You'll want to separate those back into the appropriate bins when you use them so we don't get them confused. And again, some red labels also here. If you are building flats with 3/4 inch pine, you need to use the 1 1/2 inch length staple. You can use the narrow crown or the medium crown for your flat construction. The medium crown is 16 gauge while the narrow crown is 18 gauge, so the 16 gauge thicker wire staple is a little bit stronger. It's also a little bit noisier and beefier tool and takes a little bit more practice to be accurate. To the left of that, we have the 1-inch wide crown staples, and there are a few sizes of that. They are also 16 gauge wire. We have 5/8 inch, we have 3/4 inch, we have 1-inch staples, and we have 1 1/4 inch staples. These are more useful for securing two pieces of pine flat next to each other and stretching across a wider gap. And then you come and secure it with an alternate method, but it's just for sort of tacking in place more than anything else. The difference between the three sizes of staples, narrow crown, medium crown, and wide crown, is basically in the size and shape of their name. Narrow crown means it has the narrowest crown, and the crown is this part on the top. So this is a 1/4 inch narrow crown. This is a 7/16 inch medium crown, and this is a 1-inch wide crown stapler. They all go in different tools. They don't go into the same tool, so you need to use the right one in the right tool. A lot of things for these two are used interchangeably. The tools for the narrow crown are lighter weight and a little bit easier to use. The medium crown are a little bit stronger and will give you a longer lasting assembly. These are our narrow crown staplers. All do the same task, but they all have slightly different controls and functions for loading. This is one of our workhorses, the Porter Cable model NS150B. This is the narrow crown stapler that we use the most often. We have two of these Porter cables, but they are not the same. This one is the 100B, and this one is the 150B. And you can see when they're side by side, the difference here is in the width of the amount and size of staples that they can take. This one will only go up to 1-inch staples, so you won't be using that for making flats and framing them together. This one can go up to 1.5-inch staples. You need the 1.5-inch staples to assemble flats. This is the Senko brand. Senko is an industrial workhorse. They are well known and used heavily in the construction industry. This is the Bosch. It has a similar design to the Senko. And this is the Bostitch brand, also a narrow crown stapler. We have one tool here, a Grizzly tool. It is a combination narrow crown stapler and brad nailer. So it can actually do both. So it can either put brad nails in on the side here, or it can put the staples on top. So this is one tool that can do both. And it does staple length up to 1 5/8 inch narrow crown staples and up to 2-inch brad nails. All of the tools basically have the same functions, more or less. They all have a way to open the device. They all have a way to add your staples. Some load from the bottom and some load from the top. They'll go down like this. You'll have to just remember which one is which. Porter cables are generally a load from the bottom type of device. And you just slam it shut like that. You do it more gently, but you kind of have to give it that little last minute kick. They all have a nose that will press down. It will not actuate unless you press down on the nose. I'm not plugged into air, so I'm not at risk of actuating anything. But that needs to be pressed down, and you'll press that down against your material. If that is not pressed down, you can pull the trigger and nothing will come out. So unlike what happens in the movies, when you see someone grab a pneumatic nail gun or stapler and they go, they don't work that way. So there are safety features to prevent that from happening, so you don't accidentally shoot your foot, you shoot at someone else, shoot through your hand, any of those things, it has to be depressed. This will hook onto your tool belt or your belt pocket. They all have a hose inlet, and all of our tools have the same size of hose connectors. And there is the trigger, and some of them have a function, like this little red knob, which you can't see because it's all covered with glue, but there's an arrow pointing to multi-staples and there's an arrow pointing to single staples. Yes, underneath the glue is multi-staple, multifunction, and single function. The difference between multifunction and single function is that when you're in single function, you basically have to push this down, pull the trigger, it fires once, and then you have to release this and release the trigger, and then do that cycle again. Push down, pull the trigger, release. Push down, pull the trigger, release. When it's in multi-staple mode, you can hold the trigger down and just go tap, 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 like you might see with roofers nailing their roofing shingles in. That's multi-staple mode. But that is not as accurate if you're trying to get your staples into very specific spots. You are going to find that you are not going to be as good with the multi-staple mode. You're going to be a little less accurate. If you have a task like roofing, it doesn't need to be accurate, it just needs to be kind of in the general vicinity, then that function is going to actually be pretty good. So the way this one works is I have to push this in, and then I have to turn it 180 degrees to the other side. And now my arrow is pointing the other direction towards my single staple. So again, it goes like that and like that. That's the Porter cable. Some of them have an adjustable vent here on the top. This one does not. You want to vent that away from your face. Porter cable that only takes 1-inch staples is much the same thing, a slightly newer version. It does not have the ability to go multi-staple, but it does have this lock that you can flip up, and now it's a trigger lock. They also have here a dial, and this adjusts your depth control. There's a higher staple here and a lower staple there. If I turn it towards the higher staple, my staples aren't going to go in as far. If I turn it towards the lower staple, my staples are going to go in further. That's how I can fine-tune this tool to get the staple at the appropriate depth. Both Porter cables have this function. Same thing. Higher staple, lower staple. The Bosch has all the same features. It pulls back, it locks into open loading mode, and there's a button right here. If you push that in, that releases it and puts it into pressure. So lock and release, lock and release. When it's like this, so you can slide your staples out and pull your staples out, this one loads from the top. This is our single and multi-staple function. Arrow right there, pointing to multiple staples. There's a symbol of multiple staples, so that's rapid fire. That's single fire. Rapid fire, single fire. Some of these do have a quick release for jams. If you have the Porter cables did not have a quick release, you have to undo some hex keys on the front to pop that off. If you are releasing a jam, you need to take the pressure out of here so that it's not pushing the staples in, and then you can release the jam, and then it pops open, and you have access to take out the banged up or dented or jammed staple. Then you slide it back together, and then you can latch it back, and then you can put your staples back in and get back to production. This one does have the control for the airflow. Normally having the airflow going forward is going to be good for most of you because you're going to be using it with your right hand or you're going to be using it with your left hand. If you really want to do it away from you, I'm right-handed, so I push it away to the right. And I want to make sure I'm also not blowing that in someone else's face who's working nearby. But that's important to know that you have control over which way the airflow is. I just don't want to be putting it here and having it blow this in my face and into my eyes while I'm operating the tool. The Bosch has the depth control on the front here. Again, taller staple, shorter staple. If I go this way to the taller staple, that means it's not going to go in so far. If I go away to the deeper staple, it will go further in. The Bosch stitch loads similarly to the Porter cable. It loads from underneath. You put your staples in like that, and you close it up. It also has a rapid fire or single fire mode. And the way this works is I can push this out from the other side. See, there's a little button there that I push in, and that pushes that out. And once that's out, then I can twist it to the other location. It also has a depth control. This one comes with a connector on a ball bearing. Kind of makes for some flexibility and helps protect your cord. This does not have a directional control for your air release. The Bosch stitch does not have a quick release. It has 2 hex keys that you need to loosen up to release a jam. The Senko tool pulls back and it latches back there. It's a top loader as well, just like the Bosch. And then this you don't twist this, you don't loosen it up, you just push it down and it goes forward. It's got a little lock that locks into this little notch. I've lost and had to replace that knob multiple times because someone goes and loosens it up. This does not have any control over depth. It does not have any options on the trigger. The Senko is only on rapid fire mode. In order to change it from rapid fire mode to single fire mode, you need to change some of the internal components. But we always have it on rapid fire mode. This one also has a quick release for jam release. Again, I wasn't pressurized, so otherwise if it was pressurized, this comes shooting through. And like that. The new Grizzly, which hasn't gotten any use yet, but here it is. It has a depth control, which was just locked into one position. Brand new, never been used. It has a release in the back. And the staples slide on top loader, like that. A handy screen so you can watch and see how many staples you have left and when you're getting low. I don't see any functions that allow it to be multiple fire. I don't even know whether it's single fire or rapid fire. Haven't used it yet. We're going to find out. That's all of our narrow crown staples. Medium crown staplers. Now you would think that one brand would have all the same type of design and style, but no, the Porter cables are a bottom loader for the narrow crown, and they're a top loader for the medium crown. And this is a lot more like the Bosch and the Senko. And it loads like that. Medium crown, a little release button here that slides forward. This one is one of our workhorses. Like the other tools, it has a quick release. Again, the narrow crown for the Porter cable does not have a quick release. For for changing and clearing jams, but the medium crown does. This one has the same sort of red knob for changing from rapid fire to single fire. It also has the same location as its brand mates for lowering and raising the depth of your device, of your staple. Porter cable medium crown stapler. This one does have adjustments so you can direct that airflow at your face or away from your face. I would recommend away from your face. I'm right-handed again, so away from my face is towards the right. This is the DuoFast. It only has a single function on it, and the single function is to be rapid fire. So this one's only on rapid fire mode. It doesn't have an adjustment to go from one to the other. It backs up like that, and your staples load like that. I don't know if you can see it on the video, but the DuoFast staples have a little bit more of a square edge, and the general variety that's available over the counter from most stores like Home Depot, they have a slightly curved corner. And that slight manufacturing difference means this staple will not work in the DuoFast. If I try to put this in the DuoFast, it goes to here and stops and can't go in to actually be actuated. If I put the right ones in, it goes past there and goes all the way in. Same sort of release and lock there. No adjustment on the direction, but it goes forward and down, so that's likely not going to blow in your face or in someone else's face. It has a quick jam release. I push this forward and that comes out. I can clear out my staples. One just fell out and it locks back in. There are very few manufacturers of medium crown staplers. There's basically Porter Cable, DuoFast, and Makita, although some of the DuoFast ones are getting harder and harder to find. Same sort of thing, slides back. They're all top loaders. Goes forward. This one does not have a depth control that I can see. It does have your adjustment directional air release, air exhaust, and it does have a quick release for clearing jams. The last one we have is the wide crown stapler, and we only have this one DuoFast tool, and it's an older model. It doesn't have the obvious slide open functions like the others. You actually pull this lever and it slides forward, quite the opposite of what all the others do. They slide backward, and then the staples load in on top, and then that's what this button is for. This button, when it's all the way forward, it locks. You have to press that down and then you slam it shut. It does not have an adjustment for rapid fire or single fire. I think it's just set on single fire. And it doesn't have control over the airflow. It just sort of goes out in all directions, the exhaust. No quick release for clearing jams. Again, release that lever, slide forward, it locks, and in order to unlock it, you push that button down and close. This is the medium crown stapler, and as you can see, I'm connecting it. I put my 3 drops of oil in there. They haven't been oiled up in a long time, so So I've put oil in there to lubricate the insides. As you can see, I pull the trigger, nothing happens. But once I actuate the tip of the tool, now if I pull the trigger, it fires. This one does not have a depth control, so the only way you can control the depth on the dual fast is to adjust the airflow down. These are actually pretty good depth for going into 1x. You want to go below the surface. If you are not going below the surface, you need to get your pressure adjusted or adjust your tool so it goes below the surface. If it doesn't go below the surface, you're going to have to come back in with a hammer and tap everyone down in that doesn't go below the surface. Normally, you're going to put your flat together like this. Have to make sure it's flush. We will glue it, and then keeping your fingers out of the way. And again, this one's on rapid fire only. So what happens with rapid fire, without my finger on the trigger here, what happens with rapid fire, I shoot one staple, it bounces back, and then when my finger's on the trigger, I don't have control over it, and it bounces back and it shoots another staple. It does a double staple. So if I wanted to try the tap method, I could just go like that. Because it's rapid fire, I can just hold the trigger and go. But as you can see, much harder to control and get it exactly where I want. And you kind of need things to be accurate. The workhorse is going to be your narrow crown stapler. Again, I put oil in there, lubricate the insides. Again, I pull the trigger, I got nothing. I'm going to change it to single fire mode because it's on rapid fire mode. So you can see how that works. So if I pull the trigger on single fire mode and I tap, nothing happens. Because in single fire mode, the action has to be, I push down on the tip and then I pull the trigger, I get one shot and I get no more shots until I release the trigger, put the nose down on the material, pull the trigger again, release the trigger. Adjusting the depth control on this. I'm going to just adjust it way up. See if we can get it to. So we can go even further. That's as far as it goes. The first adjustment is actually a little proud of the wood. Don't know if you can see that. The second one is right there. It's a little bit below the surface. And I started very much below the surface. But not too far. That's not extremely far below the surface. So that's still good for assembling flats. I crank it down 3 or 4 more turns. And again, standard flat assembly. I'm going to be putting 2 pieces of 1x together like this. The narrow crown stapler seems a little bit less noisy and a little bit less fierce and less likely that you feel like you're going to accidentally staple your finger. So if I'm using the narrow crown stapler to build a flat, I probably want to use 3 staples. If I'm using the wide crown stapler to build a flat, I probably am okay using 2 staples. You can see the wide crown stapler, especially that dual fast one, is a little bit more aggressive on the wood. Let's see how the Grizzly, the new one, works. We haven't used it yet. I've loaded it with staples. And I didn't see anything come out there. I think something came out. That one got something. So this one does have the depth control. All right. I'm not sure which way is deeper and which way is less deep. That seems to be less deep, so we're going to go back the way we came. This doesn't really have any markings that say what it is. Yeah, that's definitely deeper. That's a good tool. And now the wide crown stapler. So the wide crown stapler is probably not going to be for this type of joinery. You're not going to want to go through 3/4 inch pine into the others. Some of my staples could do that, but the longest I've got are 1 1/4, and you really need 1 1/2 inch long staples. So what we tend to use this for is, let's say we need to put these 2 pieces of wood together, or we need to put 2 pieces of wood together like this, and I want to just hold it in place while I attach some other joinery that's more permanent. This can be the way of doing it. I'll do it in a T so you can see. I should check and make sure which staples I've got in here. I do have the short ones. I think these were 5/8. Plop that in there. I'm going to load it up with one more load. This is a noisy one. Keeping my wood together. So it's useful for that kind of thing. There are other tools that are more modern that do this type of joinery. The common one is called a biscuit joiner. The shop doesn't have a biscuit joiner, but I think Daniel has brought in his biscuit joiner to use and demonstrate. Biscuit joints for this type of connection in scenery are not going to be the kind of joint you want to hold. The biscuit joint is not going to hold. This isn't going to hold. This is just a temporary, secure it in place while I do something else. And the something else will normally be a corner block, which I have none of. A corner block would be the diagonal of this. If this were cut in half, it's 2 pieces. A corner block is usually made out of 1/4 inch plywood. This is actually 1/4 inch plywood. I was going to say it's 1/4 inch Luan, but it's actually 1/4 inch plywood. They would be made out of 1/4 inch plywood, and you'll use a narrow crown stapler and a staple pattern to attach those things together. You wouldn't need to secure it if you're building a flat with this construction, but if you were doing something like this and you needed to temporarily hold things together before you did another assembly, it probably wouldn't be attaching the 1/4 inch block, but it would probably be that I would cover this whole thing with Luan in a soft flat style construction, but with a hard covering. And I just want my pieces to hold in place until I get my Luan attached. The recommendation is for all manufacturers is to put 3 drops of pneumatic tool oil into the air inlet at the start of every 8-hour day. You take this and you put in 1, 2, 3 drops of oil. This is the corrugated nailer. It essentially does the same sort of thing that the wide crown stapler does. It's just an older school tool, and it is also noisy and scary if you're not used to it. Big chunky thing. And it shoots a corrugated nail. It's got a wavy nail in it. The nails look like this. You can hammer these in. There are versions of this that you can hammer in individually, but having a power tool that does it is actually quite handy. So same purpose. This is to secure 2 pieces together, and in fact, the corrugated nail does a better job of keeping the 2 pieces together than the wide crown staple. The safety features of the pass load corrugated nailer. This one slides back, and locks there. It has a slot here for loading your staples and your nails, and it looks like that. You do need to get these going in the right way. There is a sharp edge. One edge is a sharp edge. One edge is not the sharp edge. Sharp edge needs to be pointing down. Slide them in there. It looks like you can get about 2 loads in, and you push that forward. It does not have any other adjustments or features. It just is trigger actuated and shoots one at a time. Now we have these 2 staplers. This is our hand stapler. This is like the Aero T50 stapler that you can get at Home Depot, except this one's better. The T50s have a lot of misfires and a lot of trouble, and this one has a really nice grip for shooting the staples. It's got real nice action. It's got protection for your hand, so your hand doesn't get and fingers don't get pinched in there. And it does have actually this depth control adjustment that you can control how far it shoves the nails in. It also can go into storage like that and be locked closed. It loads by pushing that forward and up. I'll do it from a different angle. And closer. Push forward, up and back. And then the staples fall out. You can put in a single load of staples, no more than a single load. It won't close properly if you do more than a single load. Slide that in. That provides the pressure. And you can see they're not going in very deep. I'll crank this up a few turns. It might be because of the style I chose. Getting closer to being flush. I think if I hold it in place, I'm going to have my best action. So the first ones that were not flush, and then as I was adjusting it down, it's getting more and more flush. These are the dual fast manual and pneumatic and Fasco pneumatic staples. This is a Fasco brand stapler. It is not dual fast, but it takes the dual fast staples. And this loads from the bottom. It takes a full load. I think that's a different size, isn't it? Someone has gotten these all mixed up. They are 2 different sizes. Now I don't know which one this is. 3/8. I'm going to load them in there. Latch is closed. This one has a safety on it. It doesn't have the pressure release trigger. So you have to pull this safety up with your middle finger and pull the trigger a little closer. Lift this up with your middle finger and pull the trigger. And you have to do that on every single staple. You do not want to get a piece of tape and tape that up to get it out of the way. That's dangerous. Just need to do it like that and just, learn how to operate the tool. It does not have any depth control. Everything's nice and smooth there. Same type of staples. Manual, pneumatic. If you're doing upholstery and that type of thing, or stretching some fabric onto a flat, you might want to use this tool just to go faster. Some of the pneumatic tools that we use do come with a battery-operated cordless version, like this Milwaukee narrow crown stapler. It's battery-operated, not air-operated. It has all the same features. It takes up to 1.5-inch staples. It loads from the underneath. This is one that I have at home. Again, I have the Milwaukee at home. Makita makes a version of this, but they don't make a narrow crown stapler. Makita makes a brad nailer, and I think they also make a pin nailer. So not every manufacturer will make all of the different varieties of pneumatic tools, but some of them exist in the cordless variety, which is useful if you don't want to drag a compressor around and you don't want to drag that compressor hose around. It can get you some work done in tight spots and in places you can't otherwise get it done. This tool is heavier than any pneumatic narrow crown stapler. It's a very heavy tool, so it's going to wear you out fast just with the weight of it. I'll do a demonstration just to give you an idea of what it sounds like and what it feels like. Has the same safety tip on the front as the pneumatics. It will not fire without that. In this one in particular, I have to actually turn it on for it to fire. And it has a mode control here of a single fire or rapid fire mode. If Makita came out with one of these, I would actually buy one for the shop so we could have some additional options. There's no point in buying a Milwaukee since all of our tools are Makita battery operated, but Makita doesn't carry a narrow crown stapler.